Hi, thanks for joining us for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South. I'm Chris Cooper. We get lots of viewer questions every year, more than we can answer. But winter is a great time to catch up. Today we have lots of questions from you. That's just ahead on the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South.
Production funding for the Family Plot, Gardening in the Mid-South is provided by the WKNO Production Fund, the WKNO Endowment Fund, and by viewers like you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Family Plot. I'm Chris Cooper. Joining me today is Joellen Diamond. Joellen is the Director of Landscape at the University of Memphis, and Celeste Scott is with us today. Celeste is a horticulture specialist with UT Extension. Thank you for joining me, ladies.
Yeah.
Yes.
Y'all ready?
Good to be here.
All right, so here's our first viewer email. How do I get rid of bindweed? And this is Sue from St. Louis, Missouri. She says it is growing in her beds, especially around her hedges, Celeste. So the old bindweed.
I know, it is so tough. It is so tough. And so you could come at it from a couple different ways. I feel like she mentioned that she's been pulling it for, this past year at least anyway. But if you are committed to staying on top of that and pulling it year after year, you can have some success bringing those populations down, but you really have to stay on top of it. Like, you can't skip a year and then expect to pick back up the next year where you left off, because then all your progress has been thrown out the window. So staying on top of it with mechanical, hand removing is one option. Another option would be to use a non-selective type herbicide, like a glyphosate type active ingredient product. And then timing is important for when you apply it to this plant. So this is a perennial weed that has underground storage roots. And so applying this product as we're coming into late summer into fall, that's kind of going to be the best time to target that plant with those products, because that's the time of year when the plant is fixing to kind of shut down, right? The above ground portions of the plant. So it's rapidly sending things that come into contact with its leaves into those storage roots, okay? And that's what we want to do. Yes, we want to kill the above ground part, but we're more concerned about what's underground and making sure that those aren't viable and can sprout back up the following year. So if we target it at that time of year, you're going to have better success getting the product to that storage root. And have less re-sprouting the following year. Again, that's not going to be a once and done type situation. You're going to have to stay on top of it, run those energy reserves down on all those storage roots until we get to a point where it seems that we have things under control. So that would be the strategy.
It's a good strategy.
Yeah. And when she's applying those glyphosates and things like that, you can do what they call a sponge method. You can mix some of it up in a container, get your gloves on, read the label, how to mix it, put a sponge in the product, and literally just tap it on the plant. And then you won't be getting it on any of your other plants, and it will translocate and get rid of it as best you can, because it's going to...
Yeah, that's a good tip, and that way you don't have to worry about harming desirable plants that may be in your landscape.
All right, Ms. Sue. Yeah, good explanation. Yeah, so I think that works, Celeste. So thank you so much for the information. Yeah, and good luck with that. Bindweed, tough.
Oh, it is.
Same family as Morning Glory. Yeah, beautiful blooms, but yeah, it can be deadly. All right. So yeah, good luck to you. Here's our next viewer email. How do I get rid of crackweed? And this is Deb from Crawfordsville, Indiana. She says it is taking over her flower beds. She's tried digging, but to no avail. So how do we help her, Joellen?
Well, keeping up with it and making sure as soon as you get green in the up, you pull it. Again, you could put any kind of non-selective herbicide in a container and gloves and a sponge, and just tap it on it to keep it away from all the other plants. I've also seen people put a small cup over the top of their sprayer, so that they can put the put the little cup over it and just spray that particular plant to get it away, to not broadcast it in
like
the rest of the bed.
Yeah.
But you can keep pulling it. Again, you can keep pulling it, and you got to keep up with that and have to have the time. And some people say, well, I've done it. I did it last month. Well, last month might be too long for it to regenerate, and it likes the season, and it's going to grow even more. So yeah, just keep up with it, and I'd say a non-selective herbicide other than pulling it would be the best way to selectively get rid of it in the bed.
In the bed. Anything you want to add to that, Celeste?
No, other than, was it in a bed or was it in a grassy, like
So
a
it's
turf
actually
area?
in her
It's a bed.
flower bed.
Oh, okay, in the flower bed.
Yeah.
Okay, then yes, that would be the best approach. Some folks can have issues with quackgrass in turf grass
Sure can,
areas,
yeah.
and so that is a whole nother approach. Yes, you could, try to control with spot spraying of individual, occurrences throughout that turf area with non-selectives, but then you have, dead spots all throughout your turf. So,
Yeah.
that one's a kind of a difficult issue, but they tend to prefer compacted soils that don't have thick vegetative growth on them already. So by just promoting healthy turfs, we can that are going to outcompete and not allow that open space for the sun to hit the soil surface and allow those seeds to germinate. That would be an approach for that weed issue in a turf grass type area.
All right.
Yeah.
So go ahead,
And
Ms.
of course,
Dad, yeah.
she can mulch it. It's its bed.
Yeah.
She can mulch it.
Yeah.
She can put pre-emergence down when the seeds, to keep the seed bed down so they won't keep regenerating
Right.
themselves. But some people don't like that.
Yeah,
But mulching
quackgrass
would
is,
help.
yeah, it's very difficult, to try to eradicate. Yeah, but it's in a flower bed setting. Pull it, pull it. If you have moist, conditions, it's easier to come out. Something else too, when you're pulling it, especially if we have a mature quackgrass weed, you're gonna have to do. Yeah, I would get a bag or something to put in the
Seed
bag
heads.
because if
Yeah.
you shake it up, it's gonna be full of seeds. So
Right.
you're just spreading those seeds, throughout the bed. So, Ms. Deb, you got some work to do. All right. Yeah. Good luck to you. I hope that helps you out. All right, here's our next via email. How do I get rid of the leaf miners on my Meyer lemon? And this is Timothy from Palm City, Florida. So what do you think about that one, Jolyn?
Oh, wow.
Leaf miners.
Yeah,
How about
leaf
that?
miners. I've had problems with leaf miners on different types of plants, but the plant must be stressed, though. It might have too much water or not enough water, one way or the other, because a stressed plant usually does get insects like that.
Okay.
And the best time to treat them is in the spring when they first see signs of leaf miners in the ground and coming out in the leaves. It has to be a soil drench. This is unfortunately, you can't spray the top of the leaf. The insect is inside the leaf. So
Yes.
in order to get it, you have to do a soil drench of some type of insecticide so that the plant will take it up, and then it's easy. That's the easiest way to get rid of leaf miners. And you can just look at the labels. I'm sure the extension there can help them get labels, an insecticide that will be good for their lemons and won't hurt the lemons.
It won't hurt the lemons.
Yeah,
Okay. And that should be on the label, you think?
I would think so, yes.
Read and follow the label.
Yeah, read and follow the label.
Anything you want to add to that, Celeste? I see you over there thinking.
Oh no, I'm just processing.
just
I know,
processing
I
it.
think that was an excellent answer, and I would probably lean towards a systemic drench as well.
I think that's going to be your choice. When those leaves are young and starting to develop. Yeah. Because that maggot is actually going to feed right inside of that leaf tissue, right? So there's not going to be a foliar application.
And then when
that's not
it
gonna penetrate that
matures,
leaf.
when it matures and leaves the plant, it's a flying insect
That's
at
right.
that point. So
Yeah.
applying anything foliarly is not going to do you any good.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's going to have to be it's going to have to be a drench.
Let me add one more thing.
Sure.
So those drench products are systemic products.
Sure.
So lots of times they hold labels for foliar application as well. So all systemic means is that it is able to disperse itself to other parts of the plant, right? So yes, there are systemic products that you can apply to a leaf that then enter into the internal parts of the plant systemically. So imidacloprid comes to mind. There are imidacloprid products that have instructions for drench as well as foliar and or bark application. So yeah, different opportunities for application, but the product itself, we want to look for things that are systemic, able to move within the plant, Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So move throughout the
And
vascular
it depends
system of the
on
plant.
how big the plant is. If it's a large plant, I would tend to want to do the soil drench so it wouldn't overspray onto anything else.
Right.
And I would be able to get it up into the tree where the leaves are.
And it'll take a while. It's not something that's gonna like happen overnight. You're not gonna drench,
Yeah, just-
your tree one day and then like 3 days later, have cured your leaf miner
Right,
problem.
yeah. No,
Like,
you take
you know,
a while.
it takes time to disperse throughout the plant, and the larger the plant, the longer it's gonna take.
Right, right.
Yeah, and the
No,
leaf,
it's
the
okay,
leaf
right.
miners that I've had here and different other plants, sometimes it's taken 2 years to get rid of them.
Right, how about that?
So-
But the good thing about the systemic products, they have a long residual.
That
Yes.
is.
Right. I mean, so that definitely does help. But yeah, again, make sure, Timothy, that you read and follow the label. Because, for the homeowners, you may not be able to get, one of those systemics that have the foliar, applications that you can actually apply. Right. So be cognizant of that. All right.
One more thing
Yeah.
is that there.
this is good. This
I
is
know.
good.
Is that there are also. I mean, you make sure that the one that you're using is labeled for use on food crops,
Yeah.
and as long as you are using it according to label directions, it's going to be safe to eat those lemons.
Yeah.
So. You see where I'm going with
Yeah, I
that?
see where you're
Yeah.
going.
So I mean, yes, so lots of advantages to using those systemic products. They're softer on our beneficial insects because they're not coming into direct contact with them. So lots of benefits
Lots
if we
of
use them
benefits.
properly.
Yeah. So let's use it properly, Timothy. Again, read and follow the label on that. We want you to be safe. All right. Thank you for that question. We appreciate that. Is there a way to get rid of fairy rings in our grass? And this is Art from Olive Branch, Mississippi. He says there is one under each of his oak trees, Celeste.
Okay.
Fairy rings. So what do you think about that?
Well, unfortunately, there is not going to be a magic solution, as in the most cases for things relating to plants, right?
Yeah,
We've come to find that out.
Yeah.
So there's not a product that he can go out and spray and it's going to make these fairy rings go away. But I can describe the conditions that are favorable for fairy rings, and if we could change some of those conditions, then you would have a higher likeliness of moving away from them
All right. I like it.
coming into being.
Okay.
So fairy rings, I say prefer. we're gonna see them most often in compacted soils, soils that aren't able to accept and retain moisture. Sometimes they're if we have heavy thatch layers, thatch is what's left over from the mowing of turf grasses, that can actually create like a hydrophobic layer. And so the water, whenever it rains or we have irrigation, is never actually getting down
Right.
to that soil surface. So it's a combination of compacted soil areas and hydrophobic type films over those soils that aren't letting the moisture get down into the soil. So if we can do some aeration, do some things to help loosen that soil and create pockets for water to get down into the soil profile, then that is going to help with
Sure.
the occurrences of fairy rings. But then you have to think about the root system of those oak trees, right? Are these mature, old growth oak trees that
Yeah.
are providing a large amount of shade? Their root systems are going beyond their drip line, right? The drip line of their canopies. We have to be careful when we're doing any kind of disturbances in the root zones of trees. There's like a rule of thumb, I think, is it like you don't want to disturb more than like a third of the root zone of a mature tree when we're doing any kind of renovations like this. So you may not be able to do the whole area in 1 year, right? So aeration is like cores that are essentially poking down into the soil and pulling those cores of the soil out, allowing them to lay on the surface of the soil, mix with that thatch and break down. And so we've got these pockets for air and water to go down into. So that's helping loosen that soil, helping water and air get down in there, but could also be causing damage to that root zone. So you may not be able to do the entire area in 1 year.
Yeah.
I know that you are high on tree health and care. Or would that be a good recommendation?
Yeah, that's a great recommendation because I have treated fairy rings that where it was compacted. Trees were there in the past, which is why there's probably organic matter under the ground. That was why they were getting fairy, but it was compacted. So aerated it, just like you said. Fertilize it. That's another thing you could do to fertilize it.
Yeah.
Try to get everything to be green around it, and it kind of disguises the fairy ring. But the mushrooms are still going to be there, and trying to get rid of
So
all of
let's
that
stay there
and
for a
getting
second. Let's stay there for a second. So what causes the mushrooms itself? What causes fairy rings?
It's organic matter in the soil.
Okay.
And it could be an old root, and if you've got lots of roots,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you're good. Think in the forest. Where are you going to find mushrooms? They're in the forest, where the root system is for the trees.
Right.
Good and bad.
And fairy rings can display themselves in like 3 different forms. So it might
wow.
be circles
Yeah.
of mushrooms,
Right.
So we are seeing that fruiting body, right, happening above the soil surface. It could display itself as just a ring of grass or vegetation that grows more vigorously than all the other vegetation around it.
Right.
On the flip side, it could be like a dead ring where everything else appears to be growing normally, and this one ring is showing no growth or reduced growth. So it can show its face in a few different ways.
I think that's pretty interesting. So recently I heard, of course, Dr. Bowling, Becky Bowling, is a turf grass specialist, talk about fairy wings. So to your point, type 1, type 2, type 3, right? So type 1 you usually see on golf courses. Type 2, yeah, you see the lush green growth, you know, in your lawns. Type 3 fairy rings you actually see in the fall after rain. So how about that? So
Yeah.
type 1, type 2, type 3.
But all of it
Fairy
has
rings.
to do with compacted soil.
Compacted soils,
So,
just like y'all talked about.
it-
So it's pretty much a cosmetic issue, you know, at the end of the day. So you just kind of let it be, enjoy it. You know, if you listen to, you know, or read, you know, medieval folklore, right? They pop up after the fairies dance in that area. How about that?
There you go.
Yeah.
So get out there with your kids and
Get out there with your
have
kids.
good fun.
Yeah,
Make
so-
up a fairy tale.
There you have it, Art.
you
See,
go.
that's what happens when you read some of your kids' stories. How about that? You learn something. So thank you so much for that question. Here's our next via email. All right, so what is this on my Leucakia plant? Is there a way to treat it organically? And this is Fat Mom from McLean, Virginia. All right, so what do you think about that one, Celeste? And I know we talked about this
We
one.
did.
Yeah, we all kind of talked about it. Didn't
This
know
is-
how familiar we were with that plant.
I was not familiar with that plant at all.
Leucakia.
I had to get on the search engine and
yeah.
discover what this was. So it's a type of jute plant.
Okay.
And looking into it a little more deeply and its growth habits and pests and diseases that are commonly associated with this plant, and then seeing the pictures that the viewer had sent in to
Right.
kind of accompany this question, I'm leaning towards a stem lesion that's caused by an anthracnose pathogen, right? So that's that is a disease that is displaying itself on the stem near the internodes and is conducive when we have like hot, humid type of conditions. So where were they from again?
They were
Virginia?
from Virginia.
Yeah, so I imagine it's humid in Virginia.
Yeah, probably is. Yeah.
And so as far as control, there are some products that you can use for control of these types of diseases, but for homeowners, the majority of them are preventative,
Yeah.
so not curative. It would have to be applying a fungicide before these circumstances even become an issue. So if they've been growing this plant for a number of years and they know it always happens, be proactive and start trying to get those fungicide applications on when the plant is young, before it really starts to develop lots of vegetation. You can imagine the bigger the plant gets, the more humid it's going to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
inside that plant canopy. So making sure that you get good coverage, just like we discussed before, staying on top of those reapplications. One application is not going to last all season.
right.
And that's really the best that we can hope for.
All right.
And when you're harvesting it, instead of just harvesting all in one place, try to think of opening the plant up so we've got a good air circulation, and take some from here, some from over here, and not all in one place to get that huge amount of growth just in one area, which is going to not have the air circulating. So
Which is important.
yeah, so I know they grow it probably because they eat it. So But just when you're pruning it, take it from different areas to try to open the plant up. And that will help dry it out and have less chance of the other diseases. And watch your watering.
Yeah.
Don't overwater it.
That's right. Don't overwater. All right, Fatma. Yeah, that was good information there. Yeah, we all learned something new.
I know. What
we
a
all
fun
learned
plant.
something
I
new.
always
This is
love
so
to
good.
meet a new plant.
This is so good. So
like
thank
that.
you for that introduction, Fatma. We appreciate that. All right, here's our next viewer email. Why do all my peaches all fall off the tree every year when they get about 2 inches in diameter? And this is Susan. So I think we are going to talk about this one a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So we start with you, Joellen. What do you think about that? So they all falling off, they get about 2 inches
Yeah.
in diameter, right?
I would think that it could be a pollination problem.
Yeah, that's what I think.
It's got low pollination. If she doesn't have a lot of insects or bees to pollinate the plant, maybe you should take up beekeeping and make sure you have some bees around.
Yeah.
But I think it sounds like it's healthy. It sounds like she's getting peaches to
Right, she's
form.
getting peaches.
But they don't go anywhere, and that sounds like it's not been pollinated enough to keep growing.
Right. So she has thinned and used an insect drench. So what do you think about that, Celeste? She has thinned them and she used an insect drench.
Well, I feel like she's, heading in the right direction.
I do
So
too.
if we see trees that are dropping heavy loads of fruit, one of my first inclinations would be like, well, let's thin the fruit ourselves.
sure.
And I mean, that's a mechanism of those plants. If
Yeah.
they have too heavy of a load, they will self-prune and
Mm-hmm.
drop the fruit that they know that they cannot support, but would typically retain a number of fruit as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're not just gonna like drop all the fruit because they know they can't sustain all of them, right?
Right.
Yes, so I like that she is being proactive and doing fruit thinning. So to kind of take that off the table, we know that that really isn't contributing to this situation. I like that she, or the viewer, I'm not sure, has done a root drench.
Yes, did an
because
insect drench,
that's
right.
helping us know that this is not likely being caused from any kind of insect infestation or feeding. There's a number of fruit borers that attack peaches, but that's pretty evident. I mean, they would see entry and
Yeah.
exit holes on the fruit. So if they're not seeing that, I feel like I'm leaning towards, the first part of our discussion with the pollination issue.
That's what I think. Yeah.
And then they didn't mention if the fruits look normal when
Yeah.
they drop. Do they look normal, or
Yeah.
are they kind of withered? Are they a little shriveled? That may
Yeah.
be like a mummification,
Are they
right?
hard?
So
Yep.
that might be from a disease.
It could be.
Raising peaches in this area of Tennessee can be challenging because of the number of diseases that they are prone to contract. And so we really have to get on and stay on a routine fungicide application treatment for our peaches. So that would be where I would end up. I'd say let's look at the possibility of this being caused by some kind of disease. Maybe is it a brown rot? Is it
Could be.
I don't know all the different number of possibilities
Very
that
lots,
could be.
yeah.
Or maybe a pollination issue.
Right, yeah, so circle back around. Yeah, so I think it's a pollination issue, right? Because I can hear Mr. D in my head right now telling me this. He says, Chris, peaches, plums, nectarines always have to be on a spray schedule, right? So that goes to the point, could it be a disease? Could it be something stressing out the tree at the bottom? There's a lesser peach tree borer, there's a peach tree borer. Could that be the case? That's actually causing those limbs to abort, the fruit? Or, thinning. He talks about thinning all the time. So you thin a half or a third, of those
Right.
peaches, right? Because you want them to get big.
Right.
You want big peaches, right? So, I mean, that's something to look at as well. But lack of pollination, that's also, something that may, cause those fruit to abort. So there's a lot of different things going on there, Ms. Susan. But thank you for being proactive. You did thin, you used the insect drench. So
Yes.
hopefully the next year things will work out for you. All right. So thank you for that question. We appreciate that. All right, here's our next viewer email. If I use a drench close to my pecan trees, will that make the pecans inedible? And this is Chris from Dallas, Texas. He says he needs to treat 2 holly plants with scale under his pecan tree. Celeste?
Okay, yeah.
So
So,
How about that?
yeah, I think it's completely fine.
Okay,
And
think
I'm
it's
just
fine.
going to say he needs to select a product that is also labeled for safe use on pecans, right?
There you go. Yep.
If he's wanting to collect
Yeah.
those pecans and eat those pecans, we need to make sure that whatever the systemic product is that he selects has a safe recommendation
agree.
label for edible crops.
Yep.
And so that's, I don't want to say it's tricky, he's just going to have to pay attention because some products are going to clearly be marketed as landscape application products,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
For ornamental trees and shrubs. If he opens that product label up and reads through there and does not see recommendations for use on edible plants / crops, that's not the product for him. I'm not saying that, yes, that would be appropriate to use on the hollies for control of that scale, but it's not gonna, it doesn't have a label on it, so that's against the law, right?
Right,
So
right.
we've got to find
That's
a
true.
product that has an edible label as well as instructions for use on those ornamental landscape settings as well. So just finding a product that has that broader spectrum label is where the niche is going to be.
I would agree with that. That's good.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Make sure the product has a label. Read and follow the label. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the pecans. People they do insecticide drenches and everything on pecans.
Yes. Pecan
So-
phylloxera, stink bugs.
Stink bugs.
I
Oh
mean, you
yeah,
don't use it for
all
that.
sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
So I mean, it will be doable. He should be able to find a product fairly
Right.
easy.
All right. And I think that'll help you out, Chris. Yeah, we need to find out what's going on with those holly plants too, right?
I
They have
know.
scales, yeah. So, yeah,
Common.
get those scales,
Yeah.
yeah. Treat it. All right. But yeah, read and follow the label. All right. Thank you for that question. We appreciate that. All right. So Celeste, Jarlin, that was fun as always.
Yes.
Learned so
Good.
much too at the same time, right? Yeah. So thank y'all so much for those questions. Thank y'all for being here. Remember, we love to hear from you. Send us an email or letter. The email address is questions@familyplotgarden.com. And the mailing address is Family Plot, 7151 Cherry Farms Road, Cordova, Tennessee, 38016. Or you can go online to familyplotgarden.com. That's all we have time for today. Thanks for watching. If you have any gardening questions, head on over to familyplotgarden.com. We have answers to over 1,000 questions. And if you don't see the answer to your question, you can send it to us right from the website. Be sure to join us next week for the Family Plot Gardening in the Mid-South. Be safe.